Hey guys, so for today's video I thought I would channel this dark and gloomy day and give you some of my favorite spooky / creepy book recommendations. I don't think I've done a book recommendations video on my channel. I've done it a couple times on my blog, but in this video I will be recommending more than just some scary, gory ones. I have some like psychological thrillers or just some general dark stories because I don't think you need like blood and guts in order to be scary. So if you're looking for some books that will keep you up at night and give you some chills, I have some good ones for you. I tried to keep this from least to most spooky, but everybody has their own preferences. I personally love the dark spooky stuff, so I don't scare that easy. But I will go into each of the books separately and why I recommend them. Identical by Ellen Hopkins. This one is more of a psychological thriller and less of a horror, but it still gave me chills regardless. In this novel, we follow two identical twin sisters, Kaylee and Rhiannon. They seem to be good from the outside. They have their family, but they both have secrets that they are hiding from each other and everyone else in their lives. So one sister is being abused by their father, and the other sister doesn't know this. She just sees that her father is favoriting this sister, and she takes this very personally and decides to rebel with sex and drugs and alcohol. This novel has so many dark plot lines woven into it that you don't want to stop reading until you get to the end and you know what happens. You connect so quickly to the characters, even though it is written in verse, so it is a quick read. But it's still so dark and disturbing that you just want to keep reading and you just want to know. And there was a plot twist at the end that I personally didn't see coming, and I think it just added even more to the atmosphere of the novel. So if you want something realistically dark to read this fall on a day like today, I would definitely recommend picking this one up. There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. This is one that I just finished reading the other day. I expected it to be more scary than it was, but it was still thrilling nonetheless. This small town of Osborne is suddenly spooked by the slaughtering of high school students who are being picked off one by one with no obvious connection between any of the victims. So this plot follows something you would see out of a Scream movie, and I am a fan of that film franchise, so I generally enjoyed this novel. It is more horror than thriller, but only because we know who the killer is early on and the gruesome state of the murders that happen. It is very detailed in this book. So it is spooky, but it's nothing that would give you nightmares over. So if you want something that's kind of in the Halloween-y fall spirit, but you don't want to be terrified, I would recommend this one. And then The Run-On by Agatha Christie. This is a classic thriller that I had to include on this list and is one of my personal favorites. So 10 strangers are brought to a secluded mansion and are being killed off one by one until, as the title suggests, there are none left. It was such an engaging story that I read almost 4 years ago and I still think about. There are plot twists and it is a little bit slow going in the beginning just because there's 10 characters and you're introduced to all of them. You get all of their backstory and you kind of pick your favorites and plan who you think is committing these crimes. But once it picks up, it is unstoppable. It is just a train and you do not want to stop. If you want a lighter but still intense version of this novel, I would recommend 10 by Gretchen McNeil. It is a very similar adaptation. It follows pretty much the same plot, but instead of adult characters, we get young adult. So it has a little bit more drama and angst in it. I would recommend reading this first, just so that you can appreciate where the idea and everything comes from, but 10 is still a good adaptation. The Forbidden Game by L.J. Smith. This specific edition is a bind-up of the three, so The Hunter, The Chase, and The Kill. I have read this so many times, and I first read it 6 years ago, and it still remains one of my favorites. So because this is a bind-up, I'll just give you the synopsis of the first one, The Hunter, so that there's no spoilers. So it is a young adult novel following Jenny, who is I think 16 years old. She ends up in a sketchy part of town looking to buy a board game for her boyfriend's birthday party that will be happening that night. So in the shop, she meets a guy named Julian who is working and convinces her to buy this game. She's never heard of it, and she takes it home to play with her friends and her boyfriend. So the game is a little weird. They can't really figure out what the point of it is until they end up inside of the game. So Julian ends up being the game master, and the point of this game is that you have to face your fear. So if you win, you go on. If you lose, you die. I loved this book. It was such a gripping and engaging story, and just talking about it makes me want to read it again. It's making me so excited, so I think I will read them all again and do a more comprehensive review on it. She is a popular author. She's written many other books since I think the early 90s, but I think this one is the most underrated of hers, and it's my favorite. I've read a lot of her other bind-ups, but this one I love. Anyas Ghost by Vera Broskell. I thought I would include a graphic novel on this list because with fall it's nice to have some dark, creepy ones, especially that we can read really quickly, and this graphic novel happened to fit all of my criteria to make this list. So this is a creepy fantasy about a girl named Anya who falls down a well and ends up finding someone else already down there. So she befriends this ghost who seems like a nice girl, and everything is going well until it turns bad and the ghost gets very possessive of her. It's a quick read and it has a good art style, so I think it fits perfectly with a Halloween theme. The Messenger, Fear by Michael Grant, another one of my favorite books and one that I've talked about many times over the years. This is a novel I received for review, and actually did an interview with Michael Grant himself talking about this book, so I will link that down below. But because I've talked about it so much, I will try to keep my excitement brief. So this novel is similar to The Forbidden Game in the sense that these people have to face their biggest fear or suffer a consequence and punishment, not necessarily death. But the Messenger of Fear finds people that have committed wrongs and never faced justice for them. So they go through terrible things and they live their fear as if it's happening. And our narrator Mara ends up doing these things with the messenger and following him on his journey, but she can't figure out how she got involved. So it all plays in and it goes so well together, and the plot is unique, although it has similar ties, but I loved it. So this is a very strong duology that is both dark and creepy and doesn't shy away from gory things from the fears. So I've read this novel twice already and will probably read it again, so I recommend you give it a try. Ouija by Katherine Turner. If you've seen the movie adaptation for this, it is so important to note that the novel was so much better. I read the book before I saw the movie, and I ended up hating the movie. This is a pretty typical Ouija board story with a couple unique plots, but the idea of ghosts and summoning them kind of freaks me out, and this novel scared me to death because there were a lot of paranormal interactions, but it was good. This is fairly juvenile. It's a little bit younger than young adult, but it is written in a way that it is very fast-paced. So I read it in 2 sittings and probably could have done it in 1. It's very short. I haven't read a lot of Ouija board stories because they freak me out, but I recommend this one. The Gathering by Dan Pawlowski. This is the first book in the Shadow House series, and I decided to include a middle grade book on this list because sometimes, like I said with the graphic novel, we just want something a little bit lighter, and I'm also including this one because it seemed a little bit older than it actually was. It was very spooky and very creepy, and it had some plot twists that I didn't see coming, and the ending was not something I expected. This novel follows 4 kids who are summoned to the Shadow House for different, seemingly safe reasons. However, once they go in, they find that they can't get out. Doors disappear, hallways get longer or shorter, and it's just beyond a haunted house story. So because it's middle grade, the writing flew by so fast. It is such a short book, but I also wanted to show you that there's like pictures woven into the story that fit whatever's going on, and they just add a whole other level of spooky to the story. So if you are looking for something to keep you up, I would definitely recommend this one. It is a series, like I said. I think it's potentially a trilogy, but the 3rd book isn't out yet, but I will be reading it when it does. The Unquiet Past by Kelly Armstrong, another recent read and another one that has made it onto my favorites list. This is a young adult thriller following a 3rd-person perspective, which makes it even more eerie. In this novel, we follow an orphan named Tess, who is about 17 years old, and she is on a journey to figure out where she came from. Only one person in her life knows that she has a secret ability. She can see ghosts. She cannot interact with them. They don't talk to her. She can only see memories of what they were doing when they died. So she gets a note with an address on it left for her when she was a baby. So she decides to follow it out of Port Hope and into Montreal, where she ends up in an abandoned mental hospital. So because of this gift, she can see all of the horrible things that have happened here over the years, and she can't figure out why it has anything to do with her. So she goes on a journey to figure out what happened, kind of get justice, but not really, but just continued to interact with dead people in a way, if that makes sense. It was so good. I read it in a day. I don't think I did the plot justice, but I loved this book. It was my first experience with Kelly Armstrong. She's written a lot of dark horror novels, and I'm so excited to read more of them. But because this one was so short, I would recommend it for this coming season. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about is kind of a cult classic, and that is The Shining by Stephen King. I have read a lot of Stephen King novels, but this one scared me the most. So I'm not going to go too deep into the plot as I did with the others, because I think most people know what this novel is about. If you haven't read the book, you've probably seen the movie. I have done both. I watched the movie before I read the book, but I appreciate them separately because they are very different. The book had different aspects than the movie does, but both give such creepy, chill-worthy vibes because it's horror, but a different level. It's also very psychological, and I enjoy this. I was reading this one night until about 2 a.m. when a poster decided to fall off of my wall, and it scared me so bad. So I think I attribute that memory to how scary this book was, but it was definitely very scary. So yeah, those are the top 10 books I would recommend if you want to be spooked, and if you want to get chills, and if you want to be kept up into the night, both from reading them and because you're a little bit freaked out. Like I said, I love horror novels, so I hope you guys appreciate these as much as I did, but make sure you also let me know what your favorite horror novels are down below. So my battery cut me off, but what I was going to say is if you are interested in seeing more recommendation videos from me, please let me know. I have quite a few that I would like to do. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe. I try to post a video every Monday. Yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye!